All right, guys. So what we're talking about now is day number 2. You have your pieces. We kind of let them sit overnight, and now they're a little bit more firm, and you can do more things to them to finish them off. So lo que estamos hablando hoy es, ahora que es el día número 2, que es lo que tenemos que hacer para terminar nuestras piezas, okay? So I think the main tools you're going to need going to be like a carver, and then like one of these, the little cutting tools, and then a damp sponge. And remember that when you do the sponge, you don't want to like dripping wet. You just want to wring out as much of the water so it's just barely damp. So estas son las herramientas que van a usar más. Va a ser esta para sacar el barro, el más filoso, y una esponja. Pero recuerden que la esponja que no tenga mucha agua. Ustedes cuando cojan la esponja, quítenle lo más agua que puedan para que nomás tenga un poco. Es todo lo que necesitan. So, I guess the main thing is you got to figure out what you're making. Like, if you want to make this into an ornament, if you want to make it into a magnet, and that way you know what you need to do. So, lo más importante es de saber en qué vas a hacer estas formas. Si vas a hacerlo un imán o si lo vas a colgar como un ornamento, una decoración de árbol de Navidad. So, I think the most important thing is yesterday when the clay was super soft, there was things that happened to your clay, like little indentions. Maybe it didn't cut right, like the edges look kind of weird. So the first thing you want to do is you want to fix the edges. So you want to look around, like this little piece that's right here is kind of a little bit off, has a little chunk. So I'll just come in with this tool and just carefully carve it out. Now remember that once they are in the leather hard stage, which is what this is, leather hard, they are a little bit more fragile. So do it slowly and carefully, because if you put too much pressure on the clay, it'll break. Creo que una de las cosas más importantes es ver las orillas donde cortaste ayer y tratar de limpiarlo lo más que puedas. No más cuidado cuando estés haciendo esto, porque como el barro ya está un poquito más firme, esta es la etapa del leather hard, está más frágil. Solo lo que estoy haciendo nomás con esta herramienta, con las orillas, tratando de limpiarlo, que se mire un poco bien. Y tratar de mirar, hacerlo lo mejor que pueda, así para que esté presentable. So I'm just cleaning up the edges. And then the other thing that's very important is you don't want the edges of your work to be super like corner sharp, because if they're sharp and then once you put the glaze on it, it'll make it even more sharp and it could actually cut you. So round them off. So the way you round them off is you could take one of these tools and just go over the corner to knock it down. And then after, you could take your sponge, and your sponge will make it even softer as you round it off, okay? So that's what you want to do. Solo con esta herramienta lo que estoy haciendo es las orillas de tu forma. Lo que no quieres es que estén muy filosas o picudas, porque si están filosas o te da esquina muy picuda, ya cuando le pongas la pintura, el glaze, se va a hacer más filoso y hasta te puede cortar. Solo lo que estoy haciendo con es tumbando las orillas un poco para que estén más redondas. Y luego, con la esponja mojada, dándole una pasada para que se ponga redondita y no tan filosa y picuda, ¿ok? Las orillas. All right. So, ornament or magnet. That's what we kind of had the idea of making. So, if you're going to make an ornament, it's very easy. I have a set of these drill bits. Now, these drill bits are meant to be used with a drill bit. You know, you put it on the gun. But for these, we're just going to use our hand because this is clay and it's pretty soft. So if you're going to make an ornament, you're going to use this to make a hole in it. Solo, si tú vas a hacer lo que es una decoración para árbol navideño, usa uno de estos para hacer el agujero. Y regularmente esos se ponen en la pistola, en el taladro, pero nomás lo vamos a usar con la mano. So, lo que estoy haciendo, dejando un espacio, tú nomás le haces el agujero. ¿Ok? And that's it. Now, if you're gonna make a magnet, there's two sizes of magnets, and I think most of you guys are gonna use the bigger one. Si ustedes van a hacer un imán, tengo dos tamaños y son chicos y más grandes. Probablemente la mayoría de ustedes van a usar lo que es el más grande. Y todo lo que les recomiendo que hagan, no es necesario este paso, pero lo recomiendo mucho. Es que tomen el imán y a veces si está grande la pieza hasta le puedes poner dos, un grande y un chiquito. Más para que se quede bien donde lo vas a pegar. And depending on the size of yours ornament, you might even want to put two, maybe like a big one and a little one. But what we're doing is, I recommend doing this so that it doesn't like protrude far out from what you're putting it on. You're gonna take this example magnet and you're gonna carve around it. And what I'm doing is I'm carving a little bit bigger than the actual magnet. And the reason I'm doing that is because this clay shrinks about 13%. And then once they're fired and glazed and done, then we will be able to hot glue these onto your clay piece. So lo que hice es tomé estos imanes y lo que voy a hacer es voy a hacer una hoyito para que queden adentro del barro. Y así para cuando lo pongas en tu refrigerador donde lo vas a poner, quede más plano. All right, that way it's nice and flat. Y lo hice más grande porque este barro, cuando lo metes al horno, se hace shrink, how do you say shrink? Se encoge como 13%. Y por eso los hice poquito más grande. Y ahora voy a tomar uno de estos y nomás hacerle un agujerito para que el imán se siente y lo pegues adentro de ahí. So now I'm just making this little hole, this opening, so that whenever you're done, you can take your magnet and hot glue it inside of that hole and it's not protruding out. Because imagine if it was just flat, you put hot glue and that's gonna add thickness and then the magnet's gonna be really thick. So it would be sticking out a whole lot of whatever you put it on. So lo estamos haciendo así porque imagínate, le vas a poner pegadura, la hot glue de la pistola, y si está así, entonces va a salir mucho. Y ya si lo tienes así, va a estar más plana donde lo pongas. And then you just make this as flat as you can. And then that is where you would put your magnet, so it's more flat, okay? And the last thing, this is the very last thing, because we're all gonna have a lot of ornaments. How many of you guys made Christmas trees? How many of you guys made snowmans? So there's a lot of the same things. So the last thing you gotta do is you need to identify your pieces. Ya lo último que vamos a hacer, necesitas identificar tus piezas. Solo para hacer eso, if this is the front, we're going to go to the back side, just like on your artwork. No lo hagas enfrente, hazlo atrás, igual que tu otro arte. Somewhere on here, you need to carve your initials. And you need to carve a number 4 for fourth period, or whatever period you're in, right? So if you're in fifth period, do a 5, sixth period, 6, and so on and so forth. Solo identifica tus piezas poniendo tus iniciales y luego ponle un número para la clase en que estés. Porque lo que va a pasar al fin, que ya están todos terminados, todos van a ir en el horno a la misma vez. Solo quiero saber de qué clase es por si se reburujan. So all of these, every class, they're all going in the kiln at the same time. So you need to make sure you identify it and put a class number. That way, if it gets kind of mixed up, I know what class it's from and you don't lose your stuff, okay? Because there's going to be a lot of things that look very similar, and that's what you need to do. Like I said, the first class this morning, they did not finish. So I covered them again. You'll have today, you'll have tomorrow to finish these up, okay?